Galaxy. You see, that data chip Kira had been trying to reclaim, it wasn't just valuable. It contained information that could prevent a war, or start one. And there were powerful forces who would do anything to keep that information buried. Hours later, as they lay together in the ship's small sleeping quarters, Kira's warm body curled against his side, Axel stared at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened. The experience had been unlike anything he'd known before. Where human women were soft and yielding, Kira had been fierce and passionate. Her alien physiology created sensations he'd never imagined possible. Yet beneath the differences, the connection felt profoundly right. "You're thinking very loudly," she murmured, her large eyes opening to meet his gaze. Axel smiled, running his fingers through the silky fur between her ears. "Just processing. This is all happening pretty fast." "Regretting?" she asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Not for a second," he replied honestly, "just adjusting to how quickly everything has changed. 24 hours ago, I thought all canids were enemies." Kira propped herself up on one elbow, her expression curious. "And what do humans believe about my kind? I'm interested in the stories you tell." Axel hesitated, not wanting to offend her. The official line is that the Canid Syndicate has been raiding human colonies for years, stealing resources, kidnapping civilians. To his surprise, Kira nodded. "Some clans do. The Night Fong and Red Claw, especially." Her ears flattened slightly. "But not all Canids are part of the Syndicate. My clan, the Lenari, have always sought peaceful relations with humans." "I never knew there were different factions," Axel admitted. "The GSF briefings just lump all Canids together. Just as your people appear as one entity to mine," Kira replied. "Though I'm beginning to see how diverse humans can be." Her paw traced the contours of his chest, sending pleasant shivers through his body. "Tell me about your clan," Axel said, genuinely curious. Kira's eyes brightened. "The Lenari are moon worshippers, sailors of the void between stars. While other clans fight over territories and resources, we seek knowledge and harmony." Her expression grew wistful. "My father is an elder, a keeper of star charts that have guided our ships for generations." "And the data chip you were trying to steal?" Kira's ears twitched. "Not steal. Reclaim. It contains ancient navigation routes through unstable regions of space. Routes my ancestors mapped centuries ago." Her voice hardened slightly. "Your Galactic embassy acquired it when they captured a Lenari vessel last year." Axel frowned. "I never heard about that. Would your superiors tell a field agent about every alien artifact they confiscate?" The question made Axel uncomfortable. There was much about GSF operations that remained classified, even to operatives of his rank. But their conversation was interrupted by the ship's communication system announcing their approach to Vega Neutral Station. As they prepared to dock, neither of them realized they were about to uncover a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of both human and alien governments. Vega Station was a marvel of neutral engineering, a massive structure that served as a haven for traders, diplomats, and refugees from across the galaxy. As they made their way through the bustling marketplace, Kira kept her hood up to hide her distinctive features. "First, we need credits and information," Axel explained, guiding her through the crowd. "Then we figure out how to get your data chip back." They found what they were looking for in a dimly lit establishment called the Event Horizon. The patrons were a mix of species, all engaged in hushed conversations over drinks that glowed and smoked in interesting ways. Axel approached the bar and exchanged words with a four-armed bartender. Credits changed hands, and soon they were joined by an unexpected ally, Dr. Eleanor Reed, a former GSF xenobiologist who had become an independent researcher. "A Lenari," Eleanor said, her eyes lighting up with interest as she studied Kira. "Fascinating. I've only met Canids from the Syndicate clans before." What Eleanor told them next changed everything they thought they knew about the conflict between humans and aliens. "Look at these attack patterns," she said, pulling out a datapad. Canid raids on human colonies, human military responses against Canid territories. "They're too perfect too precisely calculated to maximize hostility while minimizing actual casualties. Who would benefit from such a conflict? Axel asked. The Dravac cartel, for one, Eleanor replied. They've been supplying weapons to both sides while simultaneously expanding their territory into disputed regions. Kira's eyes narrowed. The same Dravac who imprisoned us. Exactly, but they're not working alone. Eleanor brought up an image of a sleek, insectoid alien. The Vex Collective provides the intelligence and strategy. They're master manipulators, capable of infiltrating both human and canid power structures. I've never heard of them, Axel said. Few have. They prefer to remain invisible, pulling strings from the shadows. Eleanor's revelation about the Lenari navigation charts was even more shocking. Those charts don't just show safe routes, she explained. They reveal the location of a mineral-rich asteroid belt in the neutral zone. Whoever controls those resources could tip the balance of power in this sector. The GSF doesn't know what they have, Axel realized. And the Dravac want it for themselves, Kira added. That's why they captured us. A plan began forming in Axel's mind. The chip is being held. I have clearance to get us in, but getting out with the chip will be the challenge. I might be able to help with that, Eleanor offered. I still have contact in the GSF who share my concerns about this manufactured conflict. As they discussed the details, Axel felt Kira's paw slide onto his thigh under the table. He glanced at her, finding her eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper. Thank you, she whispered, her voice too low for Eleanor to hear. For believing me, for helping my people. The simple touch and her words sent warmth spreading through his chest. What had begun as physical attraction was evolving into something more profound, a connection that transcended their different worlds. The mission to retrieve the data chip will be dangerous. Axel could be court-martialed for stealing from his own government. But as he looked into Kira's blue eyes, he knew there was no turning back. It became my fight the moment I bit you back in that cell, he told her with a half-smile. Besides, if Eleanor is right, we're not just helping the Lenari. We're exposing a conspiracy that's putting both our peoples at risk. Kira's ears perked up, her tail swishing with emotion. My people have a saying, the stars may guide our ships, but it's the heart that charts our true course. She pressed closer to him. I think my heart has found its navigator. As their lips met, Axel knew there was no turning back, not from their dangerous mission, and not from the feelings growing between them. Tomorrow they would risk everything to retrieve the data chip and expose the conspiracy. But tonight, in this moment of peace before the storm, they had each other. And somehow, that made all the difference. The infiltration of Proxima Station's human embassy was a masterclass in deception and teamwork. Dressed in formal GSF uniforms that Eleanor had somehow procured, Axel and Kira posed as a commander and his diplomatic aide conducting a surprise inspection. Remember, Axel murmured as they approached the embassy's main entrance, keep your ears still. I know it's difficult, but in my culture, restraining ear movement is considered extremely intimate, Kira whispered back. Something only mates do in private. Despite the tension of their mission, Axel couldn't help but smile. I'll make it up to you later. The guard scanned Axel's credentials without suspicion. Eleanor's theory that the GSF hadn't widely circulated news of their escape seemed correct, likely to avoid admitting they'd lost prisoners to the Dravac cartel. Getting into the artifact storage facility was surprisingly easy. Getting out with the chip would be the real challenge. There, Kira pointed to a small, iridescent disc stored in a transparent case. That's it. As Axel retrieved the data chip, he felt a momentary pang of guilt. Despite everything he'd learned about the conspiracy, he was still technically betraying his oath to the GSF. Sensing his hesitation, Kira placed a gentle paw on his arm. This isn't just about my people, Axel. Returning this to the Lenari could help expose the Vex manipulation and prevent a war that would cost countless lives, human and Canid alike. Her words strengthened his resolve. You're right, but we're not just taking it and running. He pulled out a small device Eleanor had given him. We're making a copy first, and then we're going to see Commander Hayes. Your superior? The one who would arrest you on sight. Hayes is a good man, Axel explained as he carefully copied the data. Stuff stubborn by the book, but fair. If we show him Eleanor's evidence along with this chip, he might listen. It was a significant risk, but some risks were worth taking. Axel had learned that recently. The confrontation with Commander Hayes in his office was tense, but ultimately successful. The veteran officer listened to their evidence with growing concern, his expression becoming increasingly grave as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. "If what you're saying is true," Hayes finally said, "we've been played for fools." "It is true," Kira spoke up, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "My people have no quarrel with humans. We seek knowledge, not conflict." Hayes studied her with newfound interest. "And you believe returning this navigation data to your clan could help expose this conspiracy?" "The charts reveal resource-rich territories that the Vex and Dravak covet," she explained. "They've been keeping humans and Canids fighting to prevent either side from discovering the truth." After a long moment of consideration, Hayes made his decision. "I can't authorize diplomatic decisions of this magnitude, but I can arrange a secure meeting with people who can." He fixed Axel with a stern look. "This is either the biggest breakthrough in human-Canid relations in decades, or the most elaborate deception I've ever encountered." "It's no deception, sir," Axel said firmly, reaching for Kira's paw and holding it openly. The gesture clearly surprised Hayes. "I stake my life and honor on it." Hayes's eyes moved between them, noting their joined hands with raised eyebrows. "I see there's more to this partnership than strategic interest," he observed dryly. "Report to Diplomatic Suite 3008 tomorrow." "And Morgan?" His expression softened slightly. "It's good to see you alive." The diplomatic summit that followed was unprecedented. For the first time in decades, human and Lenari representatives sat at the same table, reviewing evidence of the conspiracy that had kept their peoples at war. The breakthrough came when Vex infiltrators and Dravak mercenaries attacked the meeting itself, confirming everything Axel, Kira, and Eleanor had discovered. The assault was repelled, the ship hummed to life, its engines glowing with barely contained power. "Hang on," he warned, punching the throttle. The ship lurched forward, smashing through the partially closed hangar doors and soaring into the night sky. More blaster fire followed them, but Axel executed a series of evasive maneuvers that left their pursuers in the dust. Within minutes, they had broken through the planet's atmosphere and were streaking into the star-speckled void of space. Only then did Axel allow himself to relax, slumping back in his seat with a relieved laugh. "I can't believe that worked." Kira was staring at him with undisguised admiration. "You fly like you were born to it." 5 years in the GSF fighter squadron, he explained, setting the autopilot. "Where to now?" Instead of answering, Kira moved closer. Her tail swished behind her as she placed a paw-like hand on his chest, her claws gently grazing his skin through his torn shirt. "You saved us," she said softly. "A true alpha protects his pack." The air between them crackled with electricity. Axel became acutely aware of her scent, wild and intoxicating, and the way her fur seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the cockpit. "We saved each other," he corrected, his voice rougher than intended. Kira's ears twitched playfully. "My people believe that life-threatening situations forge the strongest bonds." Her face was inches from his now, her breath warm against his lips. "Do humans share this belief?" Before he could answer, the ship's proximity alarm blared. They jumped apart as the console flashed with warning lights. "Dravak pursuit vessels," Axel announced, checking the scanners. 3 of them, closing fast. The romantic moment would have to wait. Their escape was far from over. What followed was a chase sequence that would have made action movie directors weep with envy. Axel pushed the stolen ship to its limits, diving into an asteroid field with the Dravak vessels in hot pursuit. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Because as they weave between massive space rocks, dodging energy blasts and gravitational hazards, something remarkable happened. They started working together like they'd been partners for years. "They're gaining on us," Kira warned, her claws digging into the co-pilot's seat. "Not for long," Axel replied with a grim smile. "These Dravak pilots are trained for brute force, not finesse." He executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, sliding their ship between two slowly converging asteroids with barely inches to spare. Behind them, one of the pursuit vessels wasn't so lucky. The asteroids crushed it like an egg. "One down," Axel muttered, but they weren't done yet. The remaining two ships split up, trying to flank them. That's when Axel made a decision that would define their partnership. "I need you to take the weapons system," he told Kira, nodding towards the secondary control panel. "Can you handle it?" Her ears perked up at the challenge. "My people are natural hunters. Just tell me what to do." What happened next was poetry in motion. Axel used the gravity of a large asteroid to slingshot them around in a tight arc while Kira learned the targeting system in seconds. When they completed the loop, the final Dravak vessel appeared directly ahead, its pilot clearly surprised by their sudden reappearance. "Now!" Axel shouted. Kira fired without hesitation. Her shot struck the ship's engine, causing it to spiral out of control before exploding in a brilliant flash of light. "Direct hit!" she exclaimed, her tail wagging with excitement. As they guided their ship out of the asteroid field and into open space, both of them were breathing hard from the adrenaline rush. "That was magnificent," Kira said, her eyes wide with wonder. "My people are skilled hunters, but what you just did, you humans have a way of turning survival into an art form." The admiration in her voice made something stir within Axel. He'd been trained to view aliens, especially those from the Canid Syndicate, with suspicion. Yet here was Kira, looking at him not as an enemy, but as something else entirely. "We should set course for a neutral port," he said, try to maintain his professional demeanor despite the growing tension between them. "Somewhere we can refuel," and his words were cut short as Kira leaned down and pressed her muzzle against his lips. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but when Axel didn't pull away, it deepened into something more primal. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily. "In my culture," she whispered, her voice husky, "when an alpha displays such prowess in battle, it is customary to show proper appreciation." Axel stood, bringing their bodies close together. The difference in their species seemed to fade away as he felt the heat radiating from her fur-covered skin. "And what does this proper appreciation involve?" he asked, his hands finding their way to her waist. Kira's tail wrapped around his leg, her ears twitching playfully. "Among my people, the strongest bonds are formed through shared danger and shared pleasure." The ship's autopilot chimed, indicating they were safely on course for the nearest neutral space station. The sound seemed distant, unimportant compared to the electricity crackling between them. "I think I'm beginning to appreciate Canid customs," Axel said, pulling her closer. Kira's laugh was like music, her blue eyes sparkling with mischief and desire. "I have much more to teach you about my people's ways, Alpha." But their story was far from over, because what they discovered next would not only change their relationship forever, it would reshape the entire balance of power between human tactical precision and Canid natural reflexes, a preview of what their species could accomplish working together. "This attack is demonstrated more effectively than any words could," Elder Thoron, Kira's father, observed afterward, "that we face a common enemy, and that together we are formidable." The treaty that followed established not only a human-Lenari alliance, but also joint operations against the Vextravac conspiracy. It was a turning point in interspecies relations, all because a human had dared to bite back when challenged. But the real victory was personal. "My daughter has chosen well," Elder Thoron told Axel privately. "You have the heart of a Lenari warrior, despite your human form." "Your daughter has taught me much about courage and loyalty," Axel replied respectfully. "And you have taught me about human determination," Kira added, her paw finding his hand. "About how strength isn't just in fangs and claws, but in adaptability and resolve." 6 months later, on the newly established joint colony of New Harmony, Axel and Kira welcomed the first wave of human and Lenari settlers. Their relationship had become a symbol of successful integration between species. Not that it had always been easy. They'd had their share of cultural misunderstandings, like when Axel had unknowingly performed a Lenari mating ritual by grooming Kira's ears in public, causing her father considerable embarrassment. or when Kira had prepared a traditional feast that sent Axel to the medical center with an allergic reaction. But each challenge had only strengthened their bond, teaching them patience and understanding that extended beyond their relationship to the community they were building. Do you ever think about that first bite? Kira asked one evening as they watched the twin moons rise over New Harmony. How different things might have been if you hadn't bitten back. Axel smiled, tracing the faint scar on his arm where her teeth had once broken his skin. Sometimes, but I think we would have found our way to each other eventually. Such human optimism, she teased, her tail swishing playfully. Such candid fatalism, he countered, pulling her into his arms. As their lips met, Axel knew with absolute certainty that some connections transcended species, transcended the stars themselves. What had begun with a bite had evolved into something neither of them could have imagined. A love that was helping to heal the wounds between their peoples and forge a new future among the stars. And it had all started because a human male had dared to bite back. Sometimes the smallest acts of defiance change everything. Sometimes refusing to back down in the face of aggression opens doors you never knew existed. And sometimes, just sometimes, biting back leads to the kind of love that can unite worlds. In a universe full of different species, different cultures, and different ways of showing strength, Axel and Kira had discovered that respect, real respect, is universal. It doesn't matter if you have fur or skin, fangs or flat teeth, a tail or bipedal balance. What matters is how you respond when someone tests your limits. Do you cower? Do you retreat? Or do you stand your ground and show them exactly what you're made of? For Axel Morgan and Kira of the Lunar Eye clan, the answer was simple: bite back. And that choice changed not just their lives, but the fate of two entire civilizations. Because sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with weapons or words. Sometimes they're fought with teeth, determination, and the courage to see your enemy as something more than an enemy. Sometimes they're fought with love. The stars may guide our ships, as the Lunaris say, but it's the heart that charts our true course. And when two hearts from different worlds find each other across the vast darkness of space, they can light up the universe. All it takes is one moment of courage, one refusal to back down, one bite that says, "I'm not what you expected, and neither are you." That's the power of defying expectations. That's the power of biting back. And that's how a human and an alien girl went from enemies to lovers to the founders of a new age of peace between the stars. Their story proves that no matter how different we are on the surface, we all understand one thing: respect is earned, not given. And sometimes, earning that respect requires showing your teeth. So the next time someone tries to intimidate you, remember Axel and Kira. Remember that the strongest bonds are forged in the heat of conflict. Remember that sometimes the best response to aggression is to show exactly what you're capable of. Remember to bite back, because you never know what incredible journey might begin with that single moment of defiance. You never know what love might be waiting on the other side of fear, and you never know how one bite eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the barred window above. Stone walls, metal shackles around his wrists, and across from him, pacing like a caged predator, was the most unusual prisoner he'd ever seen. She had vibrant blue fur that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, pointed ears that twitched with barely contained rage, a fluffy tail that whipped back and forth behind her sleek form. Her leather jumpsuit left little to the imagination, but it was her eyes that caught his attention. Large, expressive, and filled with pure contempt. "This is your fault, human," she snarled, revealing sharp fangs that gleamed in the darkness. Now, most people would probably apologize, maybe try to calm things down, but Axel wasn't most people. "My fault?" He fired back, testing the strength of his restraints. "If you hadn't tried to steal that data chip from the Galactic Embassy, neither of us would be rotting in this hellhole." The alien girl's ears flattened against her head. Those fangs became more prominent as she smiled coldly. "That data chip belonged to my people. Your kind stole it first." "Right," Axel scoffed. "And I'm supposed to trust a smuggler from the Cannon Syndicate?" What happened next changed everything. She moved faster than his eyes could track. One moment she was across the cell, the next she had lunged forward and sunk those razor-sharp teeth deep into his forearm. Pain exploded through his arm. Most humans would have screamed, would have begged, would have tried to pull away. But something primal awakened in Axel Morgan that night. Something that had nothing to do with his military training and everything to do with raw instinct. Without hesitation, he twisted his body and bit down hard on her shoulder. His human teeth broke through the leather of her jumpsuit, drawing blood. The alien girl yelped and jumped back, her blue eyes wide with absolute shock. She touched the bite mark, staring at him like she'd never seen anything like it in her life. You actually bit me back, she whispered, and for the first time, her voice carried something other than anger. Admiration, respect, and something else entirely. I'm not like other humans, Axel replied, rubbing the marks her teeth had left on his arm. The silence that followed crackled with tension. But it was a different kind of tension now. The hostility was still there, but underneath it, something else was building. My name is Kira, she said finally, her voice softer than before. Of the Lunar Eye clan. Axel Morgan, Galactic Security Force. She tilted her head, studying him with those incredible blue eyes. The guard will be back soon. They're taking prisoners to the fighting pits. Fighting pits. Axel's blood ran cold. The Dravat cartel was notorious for their brutal entertainment venues. Few prisoners ever survived, let alone escaped. We need to work together if we want to live, Kira continued, moving closer. Her scent hit him then, wild and exotic like forest berries and spice. I'll follow your lead. Alpha. The way she said that word sent shivers down his spine. But there was no time to process it because heavy footsteps were echoing down the corridor outside their cell. They're coming, she whispered, moving instinctively closer to him. What's the plan? Axel's mind raced. They were shackled, outnumbered, and trapped in enemy territory. But he'd been in worse situations during his years with the GSF. Follow my lead, he murmured, positioning himself near the cell door. And be ready to run. The cell door creaked open, revealing two massive Dravat guards. Scaled skin, reptilian features, and razor-sharp teeth that made Kira's fangs look tame by comparison. Time for your debut in the pits, one growled, brandishing a shock baton. Axel exchanged a quick glance with Kira. In that brief moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Now, Axel whispered. What followed was a perfectly coordinated escape that would have impressed even his old military instructors. Axel swept the first guard's legs while Kira leaped over him to silence the second. Within moments, they had the keys, their freedom, and a narrow window of opportunity. But getting out of the cell was only the beginning. The prison was a maze of corridors patrolled by armed guards. One wrong turn, one moment of bad luck, and they'd be back in shackles. Or worse. That's when Kira's unique abilities proved invaluable. Her enhanced hearing detected approaching patrols long before they appeared. Her night vision guided them through the darkest sections, and her nose led them toward the one thing they needed most, fresh air and a way out. They found it in a maintenance tunnel that led to a storage area filled with crates and machinery. Through a small window, Axel could see the prison's outer wall, illuminated by harsh spotlights. There's a transport bay nearby, Kira whispered, her ears perked up. I can hear engines. They waited until the guards changed shifts, then darted across the courtyard. The hangar contained several small spacecraft being loaded with supplies. That one, Axel pointed to a sleek vessel near the exit. Looks fast. They almost made it. The alarm started blaring just as they reached the ship. Red lights flashed throughout the complex, and the hangar doors began closing. They've discovered we're missing, Kira said, her fur bristling with adrenaline. Run! Axel grabbed her hand and sprinted for the ship. The entry panel responded to his palm print, a stroke of incredible luck. They dove inside just as blaster fire erupted around them, the door sealing shut as energy bolts peppered the hull. Axel threw himself into the pilot's seat, his fingers